Hineni, 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 hineni.
Every year at this time, Jewish communities throughout the world read the powerful story of the Akeyda, the binding of Isaac. 4 characters in the story have speaking parts: Abraham, Isaac, God, and God's angel. When we read the Akeyda, we hear only their words. So we have come to understand the story only through their perspectives. In effect, the Akeyda has become their story. There are other characters in the story, but they never speak. What if they did speak? After all these centuries, what would they say to us? Would they tell us a different story than the one we have come to know? On this Rosh Hashanah, we will give voice to 3 characters who have been silent all these years. First, we will hear from Ishmael. The Midrash tells us that Ishmael was one of the unnamed young men who accompanied Abraham and Isaac on their journey to the mountain. Our second speaker is Sarah, wife of Abraham, Isaac's mother. She's not only silent as the drama of the Akeyda unfolds, she is absent from the story altogether. And our final speaker will be the ram sacrificed upon the altar meant for Isaac.
How quickly things go south, huh? Just yesterday, it seemed that everyone was thrilled with Sarah's new baby. A son for Abraham, they cried in the markets. I've stopped protesting, stopped muttering, he already has a son. I get it, it's complex for the old man. Sarah was the one who cast out my mother and me, not Abraham. Sarah saw me shooting arrows at the birds and thought I was shooting at Isaac. Well, it wasn't my fault he was standing so near. She saw us playing, was worried that our play somehow cast us as equals, or even worse, that I saw myself as the rightful heir. But that's how it is. I'm the older son. What should I think? I want to tell you about 2 different mornings. The one you focus on in your readings and legends involves my father almost sacrificing my brother. But before that, he almost sacrificed me. Anytime the old man wakes up early and says we're going somewhere, it's trouble. It means either his God or his wife has been whispering in his ear again. In my case, he rose early and exiled my mother and me, sent us into the wilderness with just a skin of water and bread. Sarah wanted us gone. You could tell it pained my father, but not enough to inspire him to think for himself. I almost died, but Nishkor Allah, God intervened. Think about it. Abraham waits and waits for a child, then has 2, and then in a blink of an eye is ordered by God to sever his relationship with both of us, casting me out. Then what he did to my brother. I never had any issue with Isaac, by the way. We never fought. The sins of our parents circled us overhead like vultures. They had their great stories and covenants and rivalries and jealousies. They weren't ours. We never asked for any of it. Think about it. 2 tests where Abraham had to show obedience. To Sarah in casting me and my mother out, then to God in almost killing my brother. 2 times he rose early in the morning. We both almost breathed at our last, but each time an angel of God intervened. Whenever the old man rises early in the morning, better to hide in your tent. It means he's got something in his head. People somehow think my brother had the harder trial. Seeing your father raise a knife to you, who can come back from that? But what about the father who can't look you in the eye and just dismisses you? How do you come back from that? I don't know. Maybe if you think about it, the old man went easy on me. He gave us a skin of water and bread, after all. I think he meant to keep us close, to keep an eye on us. I even overheard him express concern to God when he heard Sarah's request. But with Isaac, he didn't even bat an eye. When he was asked to bring him to Mount Moriah, he just asked for clarification. God had said, take your son. And Abraham said, which son? And God said, your only son. And Abraham said, I have two sons. God said, the one you love. My father said, I love both of them. Take Isaac, said God. The old man took us both. My old man is like those social justice warriors who want to save the world or save whole cities, but don't keep anything in the tank for their families. They say he's like Moses, who didn't even know the names of his own children. Anyway, we set out early in the morning, still dark. I didn't know why I was there exactly. We all traveled together for 2 days, Abraham, Isaac, Eliezer, and me, without the old man saying where we were going, just walking south till it became obvious where he was leading us as the shadow of Mount Moriah rose higher and higher. On the third day, my father stopped and took out his hatchet, split the acacia wood. Besides that, he was only carrying a firestone and a knife. At this point, I think it was obvious to Eliezer and me at least what was going on. My father told the two of us to wait with the donkey. He and Isaac would go on alone with the wood. I didn't know whether to feel hurt, another slight, another exclusion, not chosen, or relieved, happy to let Isaac be the center of attention here. But I mean, if any God gave me a command like that, I'd say point blank, if this is what it means to be chosen, choose someone else. Still, the old man said to us, wait here with the donkey. We will worship and return to you. Ambiguous. I think he still didn't know exactly what he was going to do. They say Eliezer and I argued about which of us would inherit my father's estate with Isaac out of the way. Don't believe it. It was a dark humor, the kind of humor desperate men use for distraction. I don't know what happened on the mountain. All I can say is they both returned, neither saying anything, both shaken, both different. The difference in my brother's case was an absence in himself, as if his soul flew out and left him somewhere on that mountain. I don't know if he was ever fully able to retrieve it. Isaac and I came back together to bury the old man. It was harder for my brother than for me. My father hadn't even visited Isaac since then. They never spoke again. But the old man would visit me. Twice after I was married, he would make these appearances and offer me marital advice. Not that I took it from him. My guy killed his wife by breaking her heart. Not that I had any love lost for Sarah, but still. At this point, he had married my mom. I'd see them on feast days and other celebrations. Still, it was our family, right? It was all we knew. So as far as we were concerned, it was normal. Sometimes for kids, it's just how it is, not good or bad. Really, it is up to each of you how you choose to remember this or tell this, what meaning you choose to make, how you choose to listen to your God.
Long have I lived, and many miles have I walked. I was blessed to know 2 great miracles, and I made 1 great mistake. And on this last day of my life, I own my mistake and give thanks for my miracles. For years I longed with all of my being to be a mother, but my womb slept, void of life. I loved my husband deeply and knew how he yearned to be a father. So I gave him my servant Hagar to bear for him a child. but oh, how I regret this, for it has hurt me too much, more than I could have ever imagined. The first great miracle of my life was that I did conceive at last. In my very old age, my womb awoke, and laughter entered my life with the birth of Isaac. I have never known a love like this. But sadly, even with all this love and laughter, there was a darkness in me that I allowed to grow. I became unkind to Hagar as I saw her son Ishmael flourish, loved by his father as he should be. Why could I not be content with my own son's blossoming? Why could I not love Ishmael's blossoming as well? Hagar was a loving mother with a beautiful son, yet I allowed my pain to darken the light of their lives. I had Abraham cast them out into the unrelenting desert. My heart had grown so cold. I have recently heard that they are safe and have found refuge in another place. God has walked with them. And maybe there is new light growing in their lives. I pray that it is so. The other day, Abraham took Isaac on a journey to make a sacrifice to God. And I packed food for their journey, and I kissed them both, and I said a prayer for their safe return. Maybe this sacrifice could lift the guilt of my soul of what I did to Hagar and Ishmael. May it be so, I thought. But then word came to me from an old man that Isaac has died at the hands of his fathers, that Isaac was the sacrifice that Abraham had made. My heart broke into 1,000 pieces, grief rushing in, unlike any I've known. My son was cast out from me. My light dimmed. I fell to the ground. I cried all day, calling out for my son, calling out to God. I rested at last in the hope that God holds all things, and imagined my grief and my prayer for my son's soul to be held too by God. But then that same old man returned to me, telling me that Isaac had not in fact died, that I was tricked. Abraham had almost sacrificed Isaac, but God stepped in. God was there. God walked with us too. The joy of this news superseded all else. Again, I fell to the ground, this time in gratitude, and I cried a day of tears of joy for this second great miracle. I learned that in an instant, what I love most can be taken away. I learned that all may not be what it seems. I learned again the enormity of my love for my son. I learned that God even walks with me, one who has transgressed. As I tried to stand, to go and find my family, I found the strength was gone from my body. I heard God call my name, Sarah, Sarah. Hineni, I replied. It is time, God said. It is time to let go. I laid down in that place in the shade of an acacia tree, and I fixed my eyes on the blue sky. I am sorry for how I lost sight of love for all people. I am sorry for dimming the light of others. I am grateful for the bigger holding of the universe. I am grateful to still learn on this, my last day. Hineni, I am ready.
I am the Ayil, the ram who appears at the end of the story of the binding of Isaac, the Akeyda. I can't remember ever being invited to speak to a group like this. I guess most congregations are wary of what I might say, and for good reason. From my point of view, the Akeyda is not a story with a happy ending. At the end of the story, Abraham, Isaac, God, they all leave. Even the young men who wait for Abraham and Isaac back at the camp, they leave too. Not me. I stay on the mountain. I end up as a sacrifice on the altar. So I suppose you might think I have an axe to grind, right? Just hear me out. I'm not complaining. After so long, I just want to be heard. The Akeyda raises many, many difficult questions, but for me, the most vexing question of all is, why doesn't the story just end when God saves Isaac? Why does Abraham sacrifice me? Now, over the years, I've done a great deal of reading trying to find an answer to that question. You know what I've discovered? I've discovered that most rabbis and philosophers tend to conflate all of the answers to all of the questions that the Akeyda raises into one overriding theme: faith. God has faith in Abraham. Abraham has faith in God. Isaac has faith in both of them. So the lesson we learn from the story is we should all have faith. Now, these same rabbis and philosophers tried to fit me into that interpretation. They said that I knew all along that God created me for one purpose and one purpose only: to be sacrificed on that altar. They say that I eagerly ran towards Abraham to fulfill my destiny, and in my haste I stumbled, which explains how I got caught in the thicket. So according to the rabbis and the philosophers, I too am a creature of faith who willingly offered myself as Abraham's sacrifice. And I will be rewarded with all of God's faithful servants when the sound of the shofar, an instrument made from my own horn, may I remind you, ushers in the Messiah. But here's the truth. Despite what the rabbis and the philosophers might have told you, I didn't want to be sacrificed. I only wanted to live out my life such as it was, or rather, such as it would have been had Abraham let me be. But no, Abraham decided that he just had to offer me as a sacrifice. God never instructed him to do that. It was his decision alone. I don't understand it, really. It's as if the old man developed some obsessive need to prove to God, to the world, maybe just to himself, that he was a pious man of faith. When I saw that need burning in his eyes, I ran for my life. As fast as I could, I ran away from him. That's how I got caught in the brambles. With all due respect to the rabbis and the philosophers, I was not the embodiment of faith. I was the victim of faith. And for me, the Akeyda is a tale of faith gone wrong. Now, don't just take my word for it. The Hebrew poet Yehuda Amichai said the same thing when he called me the real hero of the Akeyda. He said that I am the consummate outsider in the story. I'm not an Israelite. I'm not Jewish. Heck, I'm not even human. But while I may seem unimportant, I am the real hero, because I am the powerful symbol of all innocent victims throughout history who pay the ultimate price for someone else's principles, and the zealots who sacrifice us to their cause always invoke some higher authority, law or nation, or like Abraham, God's will. This is what I believe is the lesson of the Akeyda. Faith is a wondrous and mysterious gift from God. Be open to it. But faith has its limits. How do you know where those limits are? It's simple. If you are truly a person of faith, then you will always be kind and good to other living beings, even to rams caught by their horns in a thicket. But if you think God wants you to sacrifice people you love, or ideals you know to be true, or innocence itself, upon some altar of pride or creed or country or religion, then you have surely misunderstood what God intended. I tried to explain that to Abraham, but he didn't want to hear what I had to say. Perhaps you, his family, will spread the word. At any rate, thank you for inviting me to speak, and thank you for listening.
Three perspectives, three voices not usually heard, three new ways in to this powerful and challenging text. May we always look at the text of our people and the text of our lives from many perspectives to expand our vision and understanding of who we have been, who we are, and who we may one day be. Shana Tova. Hineni, 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 hineni.